I'm Ruth.
I'm Karl.
I'm Naomi.
And we're the Mann family.
Well, campground is a lot of places that you have fun. And I had a lot of guys, and we had a girls' dormitory that's just girls in it. And I had a 1933 Chevy Roadster, hot rod, no fenders. I got a can of K-Site, which you pour in the carburetor, and it emits a lot of smoke. I backed this little Roadster, a friend of mine, backed it up to their door, opened the door so the exhaust was pointed right into the door. And I revved it up, poured the K-Site in the carburetor, and we filled the whole dormitory with smoke. And all of a sudden, all the girls came out because they were sleeping. They all come out in their 90s and whatever, and we had a ball. All of us guys were standing out there watching them. That was, we got in a lot of trouble about that.
I think my favorite is like the first day of camp. All the kids coming in, and meeting up with friends and making lifelong friends, actually. And it was just so much fun, so exciting. And just, being able to sleep in a tent. And maybe they didn't have dorms then, so they set up beds in the tabernacle, and we also got to sleep in the tabernacle during girls' camp. But there are just so many memories. I just can't name one particular one. I love every one of them.
Favorite camp memories. I can tell you something that my dad told me. When they got the campground, this was in the early 40s, and softball was really a big sport in that time. And it was all trees and boulders. It was like a half acre, the first purchase, and then an acre and a half. And these guys wanted to have a field where they could play ball. And so it was just amazing. There was a demolition expert that was in that area, probably from one of the wars. And he came in with 26 sticks of dynamite and set the dynamite out. And I asked my dad, I said, wasn't that a horribly loud noise? And he said, no, the guy was an expert. It just went poof, and the land raised and the trees fell over. And he said the amazing part of it was how fast those guys had that cleared off to play ball. Got the trees, the boulders, everything out of the way. So softball games were really popular at that time in camp.
Well, after camp, we used to get with the Cullembers, and we'd all load up in our cars and go to California. And we'd go to the beach for a week, and that was really the big family deal that we had. And Cullembers were our best friends.
My mom worked so hard. They didn't have all the modern conveniences, and we were in this little cabin. But, it was just so much excitement to have us all together, and just running around that camp is, free, and nobody had to watch out too much but just being able to be together and listening to some of the adults that were there, listening to their stories, but just having our family together at a very special place.
We had a favorite place that we liked to go swimming during camp meeting. It was Granite Dell Swimming Hole. It's not open now, but you can see where it was. And that was great because the whole family was there. We even have a picture of my dad with 3 pastors, because a lot of the pastors didn't have bathing suits in those days, but they rented women's bathing suits for 10 cents. So he has a picture of 2 of the pastors in women's bathing suits and my dad. But anyway, they had a great big cottonwood tree with, steps on it. And so my brother would climb up to the top where the platform was and had a rope swing. And he'd swing out, and if you put your hand down under the water, you couldn't see. But, we knew it was clean water anyway. And then we looked up once, and we saw my mother up on the high dive board. And Ruthie screamed, and it was just really such a neat place. They had inner tubes, like tractor inner tubes, that you could sit in and rock back and forth and everything. So I think Granite Dells was probably a really special memory for a lot of families.
Well, I was fortunate, my sister and I both of us, we all got to go to girls' camp, boys' camp, both. So that was kind of neat for me. The only guy on the campus. But it was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of girlfriends.
During the summer, after we were married and had children and everything, we always brought them up on the weekend. But it not being there, it was the most difficult time because I know what was going on and I loved every minute of it. But I think the most was the fellowship and the joy that we had in being together with our friends. But hearing some of the preaching and listening to the music that Ron Lush and others played, and also watching Mother White get blessed in the tabernacle is one of the things that impacted me. And it was just the most spiritual, uplifting time in my life.
I made a lot of friends there, and I think we got to spend so much time together. It wasn't like just going to a church meeting, but you would be there for 10 days at a time, and then they had the boys' camp and girls' camp and teen camp. So people would come from all over Arizona that normally you wouldn't see. People from Yuma and Tucson, and we'd all be up there. And that's what my dad wanted. He wanted a place where families could get out of that kind of environment and be up in the trees and the fresh air. And it is a wonderful time to remember. And it still happens. You see people coming up now, and they just let their kids go, and they go, where's the fence,
I'll have to say Jim Cullenberg. He was probably the most cheerful man I've ever been around, godly man I've ever been around, and of course Ron and Myrtabel Lush too. It's difficult to point it to one person, but I'm going to have to say Jim Cullenberg he was my most favorite. If I could have a favorite, it would be him.
One time they used to have a healing service once, and this one woman that was there, her name was Mrs. Quiggins, and she was so crippled up with arthritis, sometimes their joints are so stiff, and she could hardly move and walk. And she went forward, and they anointed her, and Logan, she ran around the tabernacle. She went outside of the building, ran up to the dining hall, and ran back. I was probably about 11 or 12 years old. And it was so impactful, the presence of the Holy Spirit during that time. And the next day, she was like she had been, she was crippled. But what an experience.
Family. Camp was family. We put up tents. We had fun building the camp. We didn't have a tabernacle. We poured the concrete. I've got my name signed on the floor of the tabernacle and the date. And we played softball. It was just a fun deal with family and friends, kids with our age. It was a family gathering. And plus we had good preaching, and a lot of us came to the Lord at the tabernacle on the altar. That was a big thing. That was what it was all about.